Hi, hello, Matthew. It's wonderful to be here with you, and it's lovely to have the opportunity then through technology and soon to have a chat all together. For the
Hi,
people in the
Tagle. Yeah.
for the people in the congregation, this is our friend Matthew, but in Spanish is Mateo, and he's the director of Editorial Pellegrino. Normally, you get me talking a lot to you, so we just want to give Matthew an opportunity to chat. Matthew, do you want to share with the congregation a bit about you?
Yes, it's great to be with you, and until we can get to meet face to face, this is a great way of doing it. Um, I obviously, from my accent, I'm not from Northern Ireland, but my saving grace is that I married somebody from Northern Ireland. So Judith is from Tagle Presbyterian Church. I'm an Englishman. As Tagle said, I go by Mateo when I'm in Spain. In England, I'm usually called Matt. My father was Matthew, so we used to know who Mum was telling off, depending on which name she used. So yeah, and I've been in Spain with Judith. We've been here since 1991. So we have two boys, both born in Spain. Thomas is 28, Jacob's 26. Thomas is married to Liz from Spain, and Jacob is married to his work.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And one of the things that he came across talking with EMF and the folks was a partnership between churches or partnership between ministries. For us as Mount Pottinger Presbyterian, we got kind of a flavor of the work of EMF in Spain and a bit of the flavor of the work of Editorial Pellegrino. So for the congregation and people that don't know much about Editorial Pellegrino, can you just let us know what does your role take place and what is your passion and love with this?
Okay, yeah, great. Editorial Pellegrino began in 1979, mainly through the efforts of workers of European Mission Fellowship and Evangelical Press from the UK. So it was a joint project to see books that are available in English, make them available in Spanish. There were very few books of any kind of quality theologically available in Spain. So that's how the work started. We became amicably independent in 1985. And I became involved in the work in 2010. Yeah, 2010. I'd been pastoring for a number of years in Spain, and that came to an end. And the Lord very clearly moved us into ministry with Editorial Pellegrino. And since 2014, I've been heading up the work there. So my role is sort of kind of just to oversee what's going on. We actually have 3 staff working for us. So we have one person working in sort of sales and buying and dealing with the customers, one person dealing with the finances, and one person that's involved in translation and revision and editing a magazine. So there's completely different areas, and my job is to kind of oversee that, deal with different publishing companies with or authors, and generally oversee everything that's going on, both from the ministry side of the books that we produce, and the business side of the books that we sell, and making them available. My passion, I think, is, well, I love books. I wish I had more time to read them. That sounds terrible, but I've got piles and piles of books in my study that I'm looking forward to reading when I retire, if I get that far. But I think my passion, having been a pastor, I love books for pastors, commentaries, books that help pastors to pastor well, to preach well, because not that pastors are more important, but the work of the pastor has such a great influence. When you're in the pulpit or you're in the position of a pastoral position, a man's preaching and teaching can influence a whole congregation, perhaps 70, 80 families if your church is a larger church. And so to enable a man to do well, to run well that race as a pastor, as a preacher, I just feel is so important. And that's really, we do other things as well at EP, obviously, but that would be really, I think, where I love seeing commentaries and books about preaching being made available.
That's wonderful. For me, coming from the other side of the Atlantic and coming from the Spanish background, I was mind blown when I arrived to Northern Ireland, and when I started being my requalification, the amount of books and resources that was just at my fingerprints when I just decided to go and prepare a sermon. So I now came from the difference of reading everything that was available for me and not having enough to read and prepare, to now having to just ditch books and things aside because I don't have enough time to read all the materials. And that's what we come with the conversation of how we help and support the church and pastors and ministers in the other side of the Atlantic, on those of a Spanish speaking background, when they don't have all the resources. So that's what we got the conversation, how as a church, Mount Pottinger Presbyterian can help and support these tasks. Can you let the church, they know what we are going to be doing, but what are the main things that a church can do to help this project?
Right. Yeah. Well, the project obviously is to make as many books of higher quality as widely available as possible. And obviously, as you've highlighted, although we're based in Spain, even Editorial Pellegrino is based in Spain. Our biggest, if you like, for want of a better word, market for Spanish books is the other side of the Atlantic. I sometimes say jokingly in the office that if we were starting Editorial Pellegrino today, we'd start it in Miami and not in Spain.
I will be down to go and visit you in Miami.
You can come and be our chaplain if you like. And I don't think my wife would allow me to up sticks and move to Miami at this stage. But anyway, but it's because there are so many Spanish speakers across on the American continent, North and South, and in the Caribbean as well. So the idea is to make books as readily available as possible, and so the main thing people can do is pray. I mean, and that sounds like it's an easy thing to say, and it's the right thing to say, but it's so true. To have, the work that we're doing, although we run it as a business, it's a ministry. And so it's the Lord's work, and we need people praying for us, for the work, for the choosing of the books that we produce, the choosing of the right translators, the whole production of the book, for the costs to be provided to make the book available, and then getting the book out and getting it sold. The books are no good stuck in a box in a warehouse. So all that to be prayed for wisdom heading up the work. Especially for myself, I feel very much the burden of the responsibility when it comes to choosing books. I have other people around me to help me with that. Obviously, we have an editorial board, but so just pray. It is important. It's vitally important. It's the first thing, and it should be the first thing that we're talking about. But then another area, obviously, would be finance. It costs money to produce books, to produce good books and good quality books. We pride ourselves at EP, and we have a name that we sought for ourselves of high quality translations that don't read like the instruction book in English that you get with a Chinese piece of equipment for your kitchen. It is a kind of English, and you can sort of just about understand, but you probably end up with a washing machine upside down if you follow the instructions. We want a decent translation, a translation that that actually you can't hear the English behind it. It feels and sounds and reads like it was written, the book originally in Spanish. Just as an aside there, obviously, we're talking about translation because in the Spanish speaking world, and especially within Spain, there are very, very few writers writing in Spanish into kind of conservative evangelicalism, which is where we would be. So most of our work is done by translation, which obviously introduces an extra stage and the whole problem of getting a good, decent translation and getting it checked and revised. And that greatly increases the cost. I mean, a decent translation for, say, a 200-page book could, even at the sort of the friendly rates we pay our translators, because that's all they ask us for, we'll be looking at well over £2,000, €2,000, and probably a lot more. So that's an extra cost that's included, and then books need to be checked and revised and get all those little erratas. You know, we've all bought books where it's got a little slip of paper in the front that says errata, page such and such. Those things just great. We don't want that. We want the quality of the Spanish to be good. So I don't get involved in any of that. We get proper folk who are truly bilingual, who are native Spaniards translating into their own language. But by the rules, you know, the grammatical rules, it's good quality in a literary sense, Spanish as well, so it reads nicely, and then getting the book typesetting so it looks nice, it reads nice, it's easy on the eye, and then print the books, make them available either in Spain or through perhaps some kind of printing network in South America or in Cuba in a print shop or wherever it might be. So all that costs money, and one of the ways that folk can get involved, as the Church at Mount Pottinger has very graciously decided to do, is helping with those costs, sponsoring a book, finding a book they like, maybe, and saying, you know, we'd like to help with some of that costing. And that's a tremendous for us, because so often, well, we produce probably about 15 books a year. And the limitation really is partly on personnel, but personnel is limited because of finance. And a book that can be produced, once a book is produced, obviously if it's produced under normal circumstances, we fund it, and then we sell the book, we recover some of our costs, and that goes back into the business for them producing new books. A book that is, the cheaper the book is for us to produce, in other words, the less money we have to put in, then the more we have to produce other books. So it's a win-win situation for everybody, mainly for the folk at the end of the line who are buying books. They've got a greater choice. They've got a choice of quality books, and they can get hold of them quicker because there are more available.
I think it's like a change, that it's a pioneering work, because eventually what we pray and what is in my prayer and in my heart is like in the future there is going to be more evangelical reform pastors and people trained in the Spanish background that can produce and write those books that are not available now, but without the proper theological teaching, the proper reading, and the proper translation, we will not have those type of people prepared and ready to write books. And so we need the translations to get the authors in the future. We are delighted to take part of this journey and make some steps toward maybe in the future we are not translating, but we are, my goal is like in the future we are translating from Spanish to English, because we have wonderful Spanish speaking authors that are writing books that people in the English world will want to read and learn from too. So in that topic, we got a couple of options as a church to select books, and then we made a decision of going for one. Do you want to let the church know about this process?
Yeah, we obviously in Pellegrino, we don't sort of sit down and say what's the next book that going to be that we produce for next month. We have a, if you like, a wish list. And we kind of, when we meet together, we try and meet every 3 or 4 months. The editorial committee, there's 6 of us that choose books that we're interested in, that we're looking at books, we're constantly reading books and examining books amongst ourselves. And so we would work to kind of the next year, 18 months, 2 years of what we would like to see being produced. And we have various titles that we can slot into that calendar. And so some of the books on that list are commentaries. Obviously, I said that's an area that I really love. In fact, we have a series which some of the books are drawn from the Welling commentary series by Evangelical Press. Some of the folk may recognize that series. And so we have a series very similar to that. It began just pulling books out of that series and translating them. We call it Pilgrim Commentaries. And we have, I think, about 12 published in that series now. We've just recently done Stuart Olliott on Romans, which we're really excited to have. And so that series, we're particularly pushing it because it's commentaries for pastors. So there's a number of books from that series that we'd love to do. Sometimes we bring in other authors that we feel are perhaps better suited to the particular book or to the Spanish culture. We've got a number of the series by an author called Jose Grau, who's he's now with the Lord, but was mightily used by God in literature and commentary work. So we had, when we began to look at possibilities for sponsoring a book, 2 of the books that we suggested were commentaries. One is from the Welling series. It's called The Lamb is All the Glory. It's a commentary on Revelation. It's to be honest, it's a commentary that I love. I read it long before I got involved with EP. It's written by Richard Brooks. Not the Puritan Richard Brooks. It's a modern Richard Brooks, who was a pastor of York Evangelical Church for many years. And that's a wonderful book. So that was one option. Another option was a commentary on Judges. Old Testament commentaries are perhaps a bit harder to find sometimes. Good ones, especially ones that are not just moralistic. Be brave and strong like little David and sling use your sling against the giants of evil in the world. There are other ways of dealing with the Old Testament text. And so we, one great author, present day author, is a guy called Dale Ralph Davis. We already have his book on Joshua. And so Judges would be a great option as well, partly because I think part of the value of the Old Testament, just when we read it, is seeing how Old Testament Christians live, how they lived out their faith, and with so much less knowledge than we have, but they lived in the real world with real temptations, with real situations, and how they were faithful to God. So a book like Judges, I think, is a great book. I've preached it through it when I was a pastor, actually using this commentary, and it was great. So that was another option, 2 commentaries.
And we are going to go back to that option after we talk about the options that we selected, because there is a probable surprise. But
okay. Right. Okay. Fine. So we're on tenterhooks at the moment. So those 2 commentaries are an Old Testament, New Testament commentary. But then there was also a further book that we commented that was on a list to be done. It's called Praying for Revival by Brian Edwards. And this is a companion book to the book Revival, A People Saturated by God. I believe it is the title it has. We actually already have that in Spanish. And it so happens that we're involved in sponsoring a conference, a national conference in Spain. We do that along with a group called 9 Marks. The conference is called Passion for the Gospel. This is our 8th year. And this year in October at the conference, our subject will be revival. And we're producing a new edition of the revival book, but we'd love to have this book, Praying for Revival, to go alongside and be available, and probably to be used as a gift book for the people that attend. revival, I think when we study revival and we look at revival and you know, obviously Northern Ireland has been tremendously blessed by revival over the years, but the key point I think when we read is that it should drive us to prayer. Although we know God is sovereign and is working, at the same time, when we read history, we see that God chooses to act very often in response to the prayers of his people. And so revival should, reading about revival and studying revival should drive us to prayer. And a book like Praying for Revival I think is key to that. So that was the third option, was this book, Praying for Revival. That particular one with a deadline for October. The other two were a bit more open-ended.
So yeah, for us and the people in the church know that I am probably when I like to get something done, I want to get something done for yesterday. So I drive some of the people in the congregation a bit crazy about that. But
is that part of your Latin culture, Tagle?
Yeah, I think so. I would blame my culture about that. But with that deadline and the conference coming to place, we thought that the best option was to just get involved with this book that needed to be done. Then it's going to be finished by October. One of the things that we were chatting is that when we translate the book, we want the people in the congregation to take part of the journey. So thinking about the commentaries of Joshua and Judges, I am planning to preach about those books maybe the next year. And so it would be good then if the partnership and the link continue, then it is not like we miss the boat in this other commentary, but it is not something that it needed to be done immediately. And so we just get our hand up to help with that in the future. And so hopefully as the congregation we just continue with this partnership. But the Praying for Revival is a wonderful option. It's going to be done in October. Somebody told me that there is a big possibility for you, Matt, to be with us in Northern Ireland in around that time too. It's October, November.
Yeah, we're looking at with EMF, me being over in Northern Ireland after the conference. It'll be sometime in November, I think. We still haven't got the dates fixed yet. And try and combine it maybe with some other things on the mainland, the other mainland, not Northern Ireland.
You almost got into trouble there, bro.
I almost, yeah, that's right. So yeah, but hopefully in November I'll be in the province, and it'd be lovely to try and visit you folks and to say personally, face to face, thank you so much for all that you're wanting to do to help the work in Spain.
That's fantastic. And I think all the folks here in the congregation are going to be delighted to meet you face to face. And I think all of us are going to be really excited. The only deal, because I don't know if the congregation know, but Matt doesn't drink coffee, which is a big problem for us here in the church. We will allow you to just drink tea as a good Englishman, but with the condition that you need to bring a copy of this wonderful book for us to see all the
I will definitely bring a copy of it. And
there you go.
We do. I have to say I do drink coffee in Spain if I happen to be on the road and the option is a bad tea or a bad coffee. I would much rather drink a bad coffee than a bad tea, because in Spain they call tea any kind of infusion. So they keep the normal tea, which is bad quality tea English way. Anyway, it's not tea we drink in England, but they keep it in the box with the menthol tea and the chamomile tea. So it all tastes the same. It's all horrible. So under those circumstances, I do drink coffee, but because a bad coffee is better than a bad tea.
Well, like if you are here, you are going to have good coffee and good tea, and you can make.
Well, there's not really such a good thing as not such a thing as good coffee, but So
I think if you want this judge's commentary to be translated, we need to move aside of this conversation about coffee and tea.
okay, well, we'll have to agree to disagree, I suppose. Yeah.
No, but the good news is, like, God willing, you are going to be here, and we would be delighted to have you with
That would
us
be great.
and
Yeah,
to have the wonderful opportunity of continue chatting and
that would be
continue
wonderful. Yeah.
the work that Editorial Pellegrino and EMF is doing in Spain and Latin America.
Yeah. And
So
even Cuba. We haven't talked about Cuba.
it's like we haven't talked about Cuba, but because the situation of Cuba, when Matt is here face to face and it's not online, we can talk about Cuba and other things and are more private. And so we are going to be eagerly seeing the progress of the books and eagerly looking forward to chat with you face to face.
That'd be wonderful. Yep. Looking forward to that very much.
And as we kind of get ready to depart this conversation, would you like to share with the congregation anything that we can pray for you guys as we continue this journey together?
Yeah, thank you. I think from an Editorial Pellegrino point of view, we often say amongst ourselves that we live very much like a Spanish family. So we always try to get to the end of the month before we get to the end of the money. Probably not just Spanish families live that way as well. You know, when I'm dealing with sort of some of the other publishing companies, perhaps in the States and that, you realize what massive organizations they are and how tiny EP is. And it really is a testament to the Lord's goodness that we've continued for over 40 years. So, you know, just to pray to keep things going. We very much depend on, I mean, my finances come from EMF, but our three workers and everything that we do, the rest of that is all financed from sales. Sales can be very volatile and there's very fine margins in our budgets. So even the summer months, July and August, just we have very few sales, and it's often just a struggle to get through those 2 months. In the goodness of God, we're a little bit better off this year. The Lord's been good to us in the first 5 or 6 months. But so prayer in that area, just to keep ahead, to keep the income ahead of the expenditure. That's always helpful. From perhaps my point of view, it just seems that there seems to be more and more work. We're trying obviously to expand. We'd love to see the books more easily available in South America. And we're working on various projects for that. But again, that's more work that generally falls to myself. We're doing more work in the area of social media, YouTube, Facebook, blogs, etc. And whilst the technical side of that I don't do, but a lot of feeding that machine, you have to feed the beast with material. A lot of that falls to myself as well. So we really would love to get someone else in to help, but at the moment that's not possible. So that has the knock-on effect of things not getting done, or me doing them badly, or me feeling that things are a bit beyond me at times. So would value prayer for that as well. That's 2. That's probably nothing else readily springs to mind, I don't think. No, that's a good start.
We would get praying for those, and we are going to try to put a link in the description below of the video of Editorial Pellegrino webpage, so everybody that is watching the video, even if you don't know Spanish, you can click there, see what the books are available and different stuff and activities in which we can pray and support them. We will continue praying for you, brother.
Thank you. We appreciate that very much.
Really looking forward to see the work that God is doing with Editorial Pellegrino. I'm really looking forward to help, to pray for revival, pray for revival in Latin America, pray for revival in Northern Ireland, and praying for revival in the world, that the gospel of Jesus Christ will shine light in the darkness.
Amen.
And then
Amen.
with many people say there is not much that we can do, then we just default go to prayer. And there is not much that I can do, but I just will pray. Like pray is something small, but pray is something really big. And so there is a lot that we can do. That's what we are going to pray. That's what we are going to support. And that's what we are going to encourage each other. And maybe in the future, you come here and maybe we go there and enjoy the wonderful bad tea in Spain.
That's right. Or reasonably decent coffee.
That's brilliant. Lovely to chat, brother.
Great to talk. Yes, thank you. Thank you for this time.
How about you?
And greetings to you all that are watching.
Brilliant. Many blessings.
Bye-bye.